We're out here at Glamis.
We're here to talk about this thing today, my Can-Am Maverick X3. All right, here we are.
My man.
In the sand, look at this. Sand, legendary sand.
We are out here in the desert in Southern California. More importantly, we're out here at Glamis, some of the most iconic sand dunes of all time.
In a place that I've been coming to since I was quite young. It's one of my favorite places in the entire world, but we're here to talk about this thing today, my 2021 Can-Am Maverick X3, turbocharged of course, but this one is built by S3 Powersports. Thank you, Dustin.
I'm proud to be an American.
Specifically for the sand dunes. Tonight we are going to go through the details of this beautiful machine.
All right, so this Can-Am started life as a 2021 Maverick X3 XRS Turbo RR, which means it comes stock with a 900cc turbocharged 3-cylinder Rotax motor making 195 horsepower. From the factory, it comes stock with these Fox 3.0 podium shocks with bypasses and up to 24 inches of suspension travel. So it still retains its CVT transmission and clutch setup, or lack thereof, which means you just put your foot down and party. And it comes stock with locking differentials front and rear. Up front, it's got the Fox 2.5 podium piggybacks with the Smart Shock technology and has 22 inches of travel. So what is the difference of like the key things that you kind of need to make one of these like ready for the sand?
Well, one of the key things is, and I'm just going to only mention this real quick, that when I was growing up, I'd come out here on dirt bikes, quads, but sand rails are something that were quite unique and very, very expensive. And that's the thing about today's UTV market, especially these Can-Ams. You can buy them at a dealership and they're incredibly well equipped right off the factory floor. They handle so well, I really relate the handling of them to my rally cars. But we've added and changed a bunch of little things here to increase that performance. There's some very simple, obvious things like the paddle tires, but then there's some requirements that you need out here, like the buggy whips.
Let's get into some of these trick parts. Should we start from the back here?
Yeah, there's a lot of nice, beautiful details on here. Obviously, the most simple one you see sitting right here is this very nice Borla exhaust. They've done a great job customizing and making a beautiful exhaust for these X3s. S3 Motorsports has taken off a bunch of weight back here. We're trying to make everything as light and as free-flowing as possible, get the sand through and out of the tires and back behind us, but you don't need a lot of protection for like mud and that sort of thing when you're out here in the dunes. Therefore, get rid of that stuff.
Bye, Felicia.
This obvious elephant in the room right here, paddle tires on a very nice set of fuel wheels, and the paddles just make an incredible amount of traction out here in the sand, and they sound kind of cool too, the way that they go through the sand. I grew up riding on these on a quad, and I was always amazed at the attraction you could get, but also just how cool they look.
This was a 15 by 10 in the rear, and then up front, it's a 15 by 7.
So you want the front end to basically guide you, and these actually work very well to get grip in the sand.
Now, that looks like it's gonna sling a lot of sand. This looks like it's gonna kind of like, massage through it and not throw a bunch into the cabin.
Yeah, well, when you're out in the dunes, there is so much car control that depends on the amount of traction you have with the rear, the sort of grip you have on the turn-in with the front, how soft the suspension is actually set up. And then that all changes depending on what sort of angle you're on. If you're climbing up the carve through a dune, if you're coming down and need a turn in. So yeah, you kind of really have to play with this constantly to figure out the sort of traction and grip you have in every different scenario, every different steepness, and every type of bowl turn. But that challenge is what I really enjoy about coming out here and ripping around.
Let's talk about suspension. I mean, since we're kind of on the topic. Now this has basically the stock Fox coilovers with the giant daddies in the rear and front. S3 has added a bunch of different pieces to make sure that it's like planted. Now I noticed that you actually run this S3 stuff, these radius arms and all this stuff on all your other Can-Ams.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole setup of the Can-Am rear end is actually incredible. The trailing arms and the giant Fox shocks, this is very similar to the setups you see on $1 million trophy trucks.
We got these billet radius arms. We've got this billet adjustable sway bar from EMR. Up front, there's actually some of their chromoly A-arms. So also we got this top brace here. The S3 cage and roof does change the roof line a little bit.
Yeah, it's simplified, looks a little tougher, has some nice mounts for like the buggy whips.
We're running this rigid setup. What do we got up here?
Yeah, rigid makes a really nice package, and this particular light actually adjusts based upon a GPS speed unit. So it's really quite an incredible unit. And these two lights here, actually it's the same light that's on the front of my dirt bike at home. So this light here helps see through some of the dust with the yellow lens. So it's a combo of these two lights that really give us a good amount of light right out front.
So the light on the back here, this is actually a chase light. Like anytime you hit the brakes, you got like the yellows that light up and basically let people know like, hey, this thing's stopping.
So yeah, very similar to what the pros run when they race these things in the off-road series.
Why don't we take a look on the inside here?
So most of this is generally pretty stock, except for this. We need a handbrake. Nice handbrake setup here. On top of that, we have a radio communication along with communication between the driver and passenger, and of course the lighting controls.
So this one of course has the all-important winch.
That's to help out someone else.
Yeah.
You know? Not that we'd ever need that.
Right, sure.
Can we fire these up real quick to hit them with all the lumens or?
I think we should, and the party lights.
Yes.
Because not only are they whips, but they light up.
Jesus. Okay, now that's super bright. So it's all controlled by this LED controller. You can pick your party.
All right, I'm gonna drive around for a minute.
Okay. Sick. Go send it.
2 seconds later.
God damn it. Ah. Amazing.